Was there any point when you look at all your amazing transformation history of delivering programs, you were in this moment and you thought, oh shit, this is not working. This is not going to work at all.
I spent probably 15 years in corporate. My first job was actually PR, which I never, ever did. I got to be the first female board director in the company's history at a business supply company. And so over 3.5 years, we grew it to 15 million and we sold it to Google. I also am a founder to a student mental health charity, and I founded that last year when I was working with about 120 students at a London university, and we lost 4 of them. I was working for a company that was probably 250 million turnover. But the one thing that we hadn't done is we were doing a big demo to a group of these clients just to say we're going to roll out and we're going to go live tomorrow. And what we hadn't anticipated is that we had not changed the...
Oh my God. Welcome to the next episode of Transformation Reality TV, where we talk about the human side of transformation, the real stories, the messy bits, and the moments that make you question everything. Today we have Katherine Allen in the house. Katherine spent 15 years doing transformation across different sectors: construction, automotive, telecoms, Disney, BlackBerry, DPD, you name it. First female board director in her company's history. Grew a digital agency from 3 million to 15 million and sold it to Google. Her superpower? Commercial sense and culture. Katherine learned something most leaders take years to figure out. Confidence isn't about looking perfect. It's about being honest when things go sideways, leaning on relationships and working through the chaos together. And she's got some stories about learning that the hard way. Let's hear it from Katherine. Hi, Katherine. Thank you so much and welcome to Transformation Reality TV.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to chat through with you.
I'm very curious about what we are going to talk about because I don't know what we are going to talk about. But I'm so excited to hear stories from you, given your amazing background in the space. So, Katherine, was there any point when you look at all your amazing transformation history of delivering programs, was there any point where you were in this moment and you thought, oh shit, this is not working. This is not going to work at all?
I mean, I can probably give you a few examples, but let me recall one to mind right now. I was working for a company that was probably 250 million turnover, a large supply and manufacturing company. And we were rolling out a brand new e-commerce platform. So it was quite different. We were taking them from the very manual, catalog orientated life that they'd had onto an e-commerce platform. And we consulted with all our clients and everybody who was in there. There's about 2,000 clients were about to migrate onto here. But the one thing that we hadn't done is we were doing a big demo to a group of these clients just to say we're going to roll out and we're going to go live tomorrow. And what we hadn't anticipated is that we had not changed the pricing. So everybody in that room had a different price for all the products that they bought from us. And we demonstrated one of the clients live on a big screen, and we had put these prices up there, and their prices were dramatically cheaper
Oh
than
my
the people that they were sat
God.
next to in the auditorium. It was just, well, awkward, definitely.
That is,
But also just, it wasn't just awkward in that moment. We then obviously couldn't go live, and we obviously could not continue that relationship with those
right.
pricing. So that was very awkward, and I would say that was definitely an oh shit moment.
Oh my God. That is definitely, I think that's probably the biggest oh shit moment I've heard. Like that was quite public.
It was bad.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, cool. So how did you how do you pick up from that point? Like what happens after that?
I mean, I think in that moment, if we'd just had 2 or 3 people there, it would have been quite small and we could have just had some conversations afterwards in a boardroom. But we'd presented to 50 people, so it was a big, big mistake. I think a lot of it had to go back to really sincere conversations. The reality was the bit that did help us was that all our clients did actually know that everybody did have different pricing, because that was a lot of the relationship when you negotiated at the start. So when you onboarded those clients, we always had to have the conversation about what's your pricing structure and so forth. And I think there was a little bit of a large amount of apology and a little bit of, or we hadn't quite realised that that was the real pricing. Oh, we hadn't quite realised that that was going to go live. So there was a little bit of white lies going on there as well, I think, to try and repair they're not real prices that they're showing up there. But ultimately, everybody in that room ended up getting a discount on what it was that they already had. So it ended up costing a bit of cash, but I think
I was going
overall
to say,
it
did it
wasn't
break your business case then?
it was a little bit of white lies and a little bit of negotiating, but we did get there in the end. Nobody left. Everyone carried on trading, and
That's
everyone
good.
moved to the new platform. So that was a success, but it definitely was
Right.
a bit squeaky for a little while.
And what would you say would helped you through that? Like if there were one or two words that you would say that was what, like that was sort of your compass.
I think, to be honest with you, the whole reason I loved this conversation was because it's about the human touch. And I really believe that what got us through that was the relationships. It was the ability to be confident enough to be transparent, the ability to be able to go head on into those conversations and go, okay, sorry, we clearly have screwed up here. But actually, the compass really is, although we had to do a bit of white lies, what I would say is the compass is the moral compass and the confidence there. So it's all about people, and we had to rally together. So it wasn't me that set the pricing or whatever. I was just sort of doing the presentation and moving the transformation forward. But it was good because we had a few different hats, and we could all kind of internally rally together. And it was our relationships that got us through to make sure that we could keep those clients happy eventually.
I'm also hearing you say transparency a few times, and I can completely relate to that because after that point, all you can do is stand there and say, this is what it is. Yeah. And I think people really, really appreciate that as well.
My career is very industry agnostic. I spent probably 15 years in corporate. So from the very start, I came out of university, and my degree was in communication and English language. So completely, really nothing to do with what I went on to do, but there's a little bit of a link there. And I moved through construction, into automotive, into telecoms. It was completely a different journey. And
But all through communication?
no, that was my
All
degree. I didn't really do anything.
ah,
I just did that as my degree, and then I popped out and just found a job. So my first job was actually PR, which I never, ever, ever, ever
okay.
did after that. So I did one
Right.
year of
Okay.
PR after university, and it was only because I came out of uni, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I knew I could talk, run events, and I could write quite well. So I just found a job in PR, and that was as much thought as went into it. So I did that for a year, and then once I worked out what was actually out there in the world of work and how I could use my skills, I went into account and project management. And that project management morphed into change and transformation, and then I went off on my transformation director and so forth path. So I did that for about 15 years, moving between different industries like Disney and BlackBerry and DPD and all of that kind of stuff. And then I got to be the first female board director in the company's history at a business supply company. And that company was going through a VC buyout at the time. So I got to learn loads about mergers, acquisitions, sales, PE, equity, all that kind of stuff. And I'd also done a bit of that in the role before. And then during that one, we were doing a big e-commerce project with a digital agency, and there were two digital agencies we were working with, but one of them I worked really closely with, and they needed a partner to come on board to help them grow their company. So they'd been running it for 15 years, they've been running it about 3 million, and they wanted to grow and sell, and they needed somebody who was good at transforming. And basically I would say my skills are commercial and culture. They're my two like backbone skills, and I have a real passion for intergenerational knowledge, so sharing from one one layer to the next. And so they said, can you come in as a partner and help us grow it to sale? And I said, well, I've never done that for a small company before, but I reckon I can. So I did. And so over 3.5 years, we grew it to 15 million and we sold it to Google. So I had never done that in that capacity before, but it was a huge learning. And at that point, I would classify myself as a founder and an entrepreneur. So I was part of the sale, and that was good for me. And then it gave me the chance to take a minute and work out, with all of that corporate knowledge and transformation experience and now M&A and sale experience, I was like, what is it that I want to do and who do I want to work with? And then COVID came. And so I had to revise my plans a little bit. But I ended up being in the education sector, which was another sector I had never ever worked in my life. But because of my ability to do commercials and culture, I was on the radar of I'm in lots and lots and lots of networks because I love people and I like to learn a lot. And so I was in the network for the Department of Education and the government, and they were talking about how can we improve the cultures at universities for students, but how can we improve the culture for staff and make them more change ready, because they're all suffering financially and they need to be a bit more dynamic, but also we need to help them improve financially. So I went in as a consultant advisor to 2 or 3 universities to try and improve their financial stability and their culture and operational target operating models and all that kind of stuff. And we had some great success. One of them was 93rd nationally in the country for customer experience. We moved them to 4th in 2 years. That was very good. We saved like 24 million pounds worth of operational debt. We did some really exciting, great projects, and I got to work with some students who I did some really funny, immersive customer experience projects with these students. I used to go and stay on campus with them for a few weeks, which was just right not up my street, but I quite enjoyed it in a way. And anyway, so I still every now and then get called in as a consultant to do that. But now there's two strings to my bow, really. I'm an advisor to scale ups, which obviously is basically business growth and advisory. And I also am a founder to a student mental health charity, and I founded that off the back of last year when I was working with about 120 students at a London university, and we lost 4 of them. We couldn't find them for a few weeks. We couldn't find them for 3 weeks actually, which is about the longest weeks of my life. We tried everything. We contacted them a million times, and I just kept ringing and leaving messages and voice notes and post-it notes on their door and a million things. And anyway, after that period of 3 or 4 weeks, we found them all, and they all got back in touch, and they said to me, if you hadn't carried on trying to find me, I was in such a bad place just with my mental health that I was going to take my own life. And I was just like, and I feel that way every time I tell that story. I feel that way, and so I scrolled down a rabbit hole of learning about mental health and young people and the transitions between educational milestones and how we somewhat abandon people at 18 because we think they're 18 and they can just cope, but we take them out of their secure family setting, we put them in a new city, in a new course, we ask them to pay for things they've never done before, we ask them to merge with cultures and friends and things they've never done before, and we ask them to be the best version of themselves while they go through a degree. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty hard. And so I have partnered with a number of universities across the country, and I thought I was building a bit of a small initiative, and now it's a CIC, and I have a team of 4, and we're building something fab to challenge the pastoral ecosystem of education into early careers. We bring together educators, researchers, businesses, and students together in conversation through walks, talks, and events across the country. And that is a summary of my career.
So, was there anybody that comes to mind who, let's say, either made it impossible or made it possible, because I've heard stories from both sides. And happy for you to share both, or one of, or the other.
With this particular example, the people that made it possible, I mean, we were so exposed that it was impossible for us to hide this example. So the people that made it possible were the leadership team, which I was part of, because we had to fall on the sword and we had to rally together. We had a difficult CEO, but our coup was fantastic. So he really helped us power through as the North Star. I have had other examples where people have been a real stickler for not helping us get through a difficult situation. But that was more in a smaller company with a merger and acquisition, and we had to remove one of the partners for all of the conversations. They were just being a complete roadblock for change.
Wow. Why do you think was that? What was behind that underneath?
Well, it was a merger and acquisition before we were about to sell. And so that
Mm.
person, as was I, heavily invested in the sale of the company and making sure that we got through it expediently. But it did mean that with a lot of personality clashes with staff, he wasn't landing well with everybody. And so for him to achieve his goal of being able to expediently exit the business, we had to have a conversation, frankly, about whether the more time in the room was actually slowing that process down. AKA, I think you're rubbing people up the wrong way. We need to move you out of the way for a bit. That in and of itself was a very difficult conversation to have, but we lent on his priorities, and that meant that we could get through. But that if he'd stayed in the room, that would have been really difficult.
I see. Interesting. Okay. And what all of these stories that you talk about, and this experience, what has it asked of you personally? I mean, yes, time is one thing, and over time, and all of that. But is there something more, something that you had to really dig and get out of yourself? What would that be if there was such a thing?
I think over time throughout my career, one thing I've always thought about myself is that I'm not particularly a very stressed out person as a character. I can become stressed in moments of crises, but it's usually in terms of rapidity of getting things done as opposed to internally feeling worried about whether I'm going to get there. But maturity has taught me that it's okay to expose your flaws and still look like a really good leader. And in fact, in doing so, you look like a better leader. Whereas when I was in the more junior parts of my career, I would have thought I had to look perfect. And that necessity to try and look as perfect as possible actually created an enormous amount of internal stress that I didn't need to feel because I was just trying to suppress, you know, the desire that I wasn't getting it absolutely perfect. So I think what I've learned over time as an individual and what it's taken out of me or what it does to affect me is that I'm so much more confident as a mature leader now that actually I don't feel any issues whatsoever in telling people I don't know the answer. And that's fine. And allowing that off your shoulders is such a relief. And that but I think in your junior part of your career, you're so worried about trying to do the right thing, give off the right impression, that actually can take a lot of internal stress in your body that you just don't need to have, but you don't realise that until you've taken a few more chapters through your career.
I think that's like I was just going to say, oh my God, that you said it that the way you said it, because I'm hearing there are two different things that I'm hearing. One is obviously the vulnerability and the courage to actually say I don't know, and realizing that that is okay, and not just okay but actually makes it better, because I understand where you're coming from, not just professionally but even personally in my relationships, when I have admitted that I am as a parent, for example, I have no clue what I'm doing to my child. It just has helped us to connect so much better than, having or pretending or to know it all or figured it out. So that's amazing that you brought that up. And I think the second thing that I'm hearing is that it is hard to you almost need to be sure of yourself to be able to do that. So it's almost like you have to go through a journey and feel you are safe or you're okay. So there's a confidence factor in order for you to say that, and you had to go through that. So no, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. So given that that's the case, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to
Listen.
say, in terms of confidence, I think it's really great that you've heard that reflection. But I think what's really interesting for me about confidence is that confidence, I'm sure, is multi-layered. But in this reflection, I think I have always been a really confident person. I don't suffer with imposter syndrome or anything like this.
Mm,
But I
mm,
think that confidence helped me to try and look perfect, even though I
mm,
wasn't. And I think the
mm,
confidence in the skills is a separate layer of confidence. It's so interesting that my maturity in my professional capacity is maturing my skills and my ability to actually deliver. That confidence has had to mature, but my internal confidence hasn't changed a lot. So it's just I've flipped that confidence between being able to actually know I can actually deliver and not being able to know I can deliver, but being able to mask it. So I find that really interesting in unpicking what does confidence mean in our execution and how we actually deliver our work.
that's super, super interesting. Super interesting. So now, with that, when you look back to your younger self, let's say maybe 20, 30 years ago, what is one thing that you would say to her?
I think a lot of the work has changed, right? Throughout the whole of my career, I've come from being, in a boardroom where I was the only female board director. And at the time, whilst I felt it was on merit, I also acutely recognised that I was the token, I was the token female. And now I think we're in such a different place and we've got plenty to go that you know that your position is not so unique. So I would say to my younger self, continue to believe that you are supposed to be here because your journey is no more unique or no more different than anybody else's. Your seat is valid now, next, and in the future. And so I think for me, it's just continue as you are, stay steady. You're running your own race. I never look outside of my lane. I always look in my own lane. And I think that's an important message for all of us. But I would definitely continue to reiterate that to my younger self to make sure I kept going.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It was wonderful hearing you share all these stories, and I'm sure people who are watching this are going to get a lot out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.